I've got a restaurant deal I'm working on. Oh, go ahead, Alan.
Well, it's a question. It's a question about commission structure. So why don't we come back to that after you talk about your deal?
Oh no, I'm just because it's interesting because I'm working on a restaurant deal right now, and this particular business is located in central Nevada, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And the business with property and doing comps for the property has been a huge challenge. The owner of the restaurant is not willing to get her financials in order and give them to me. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, you guys may run into this at some point in time. And it's a challenge because, I had to pivot. It's difficult to put a valuation. It's impossible to put a valuation on a business without looking through the financials. Maybe not impossible, but, I had to pivot and figure out what I thought the restaurant would be worth. Um, and from time to time, you're going to come across deals like this where it's going to be a challenge. I wish it was such a simple open and shut case. But what I'm getting at is that, and I spoke with Lisa Marie about this, the best bet would be to sell the property and include the business. And then once the buyer gets in there and does their due diligence, it's going to be on them it's going to be on the owner at that point to disclose what the financials are. But one thing that this particular business owner did, and the other thing I wanted to give you guys a tip on, is that she included SBA PPP loans in her revenue. And you can't include that in an evaluation. Am I wrong, Tanya?
Yeah, it's definitely not revenue. If it shows up on the P&L at all, usually your PPP loans show up and stay on your balance sheet, right? But if it shows up on your P&L at all, it would show up under other income, which you disregard anyways, because when you're recasting financials, you're looking to normalize the operating expenses, right? So you're only looking at your operating income, operating expenses. PPP loan is not operating income. So it would be disregarded or you would subtract that out anyways.
Right.
You'd adjust that out.
And in this particular case, this business owner does her own books and she included it in there. And, this is stuff that when you're doing recasting, you got to look out for because you never know. Like trust and verify or verify and trust, whatever your poison is, but do both of them. That's for sure.
She doesn't have an accountant that would tell her that's probably not the way to go.
If she does, she's not disclosing it. And I don't know,
Right.
if every business owner is going to be different, and unique, right? It's a bar restaurant. I'm sure there's a lot of cash going in and out of there. There are gaming tables in there, slot tables. So I don't know. I mean, what I do know is that I was at a point where I risked losing the deal if I wasn't able to figure out how to pivot and get this deal listed. And it's a catch-22, and it's not a huge deal. It's going to probably be about $500,000, but still, with that said, not every business owner has their books intact, and that's where we really earn our money, is when we're doing the business evaluation.
How did she feel about the valuation you came up with?
Well, I came up, it's interesting because I spoke with, oh my God, I just drew a blank, Alex in Washington, who has experience with the restaurant business. I figured there would be nobody better than ask him, and he knows everything there is to know about the restaurant industry. His advice was to use a percentage based on what the revenue of the business was and use that as far as an evaluation, how much the business is worth. And I believe it was about 35%, from what he told me, about 35% of what the revenue was. And when I gave the owner that figure, she was shell-shocked. She says, there's no way the business is worth more money than that. And I explained to her, there's no doubt in my mind it could be, but unless you give me the financials, how am I going to know that? So it's you gotta drill down, but it's not easy. Sometimes you're going to come across businesses and business owners that they're going to be reluctant to disclose the financials, and you got to weed it out. Get the bad news out right away. If there's some, maybe not bad news, but any kind of issues, flush them out at the outset, because you don't want them coming up and biting you in the butt during
So that being
closing.
said, do you foresee an issue with her giving the financials to the buyer?
I've had this conversation with her. She told me she's willing to, but she does her own QuickBooks. And, at the end of the day, the buyer, it's going to be up to the buyer. if the buyer is willing to buy the business without going through the financials, it's going to be on them. It's going to be part of the due diligence process. I'm hoping, at least based on what she told me, that she will disclose the financials during due diligence.
That would be good.
John,
I
you
am
said the real
also
estate.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just asking, John, you said the real estate was involved in this also, though, right? The real estate is for sale?
Correct.
What's the
Yes.
value of the real estate?
That's another one because it's in the middle of nowhere. There are no comps. And it's a really small town in the middle of Nevada. And this is another thing that I went through. I said, how much are you thinking about selling the property? And she's basing it on a property that's been for sale for 2 years that has gotten absolutely no action. But from what I've been able to do, and I'm waiting really for the title company to give me what their information, any information they can share with me. But I valued the property somewhere in the neighborhood of about 300 to 325.
So the total deal is asking about $500,000, but of that 325 or so is the real estate.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So if there was, let me ask you this: if there was no real estate involved, would you have taken the business, or would you tell them? Would you just say good luck and walk away?
I would have said, nice knowing you, good luck, and move on to
Yeah.
the next one. Absolutely. Yeah.
Does
If there
she
was
have
no
a good
property
why?
involved, it
Does she
wouldn't
have
make
a good
sense.
reason why she's selling?
She's moving out of state. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's winding
Okay.
down. She owns a few different businesses. She got recently divorced, which I'm sure is the main reason. So yeah, going back to the 3 Ds, right? Bad reasons why people sell businesses: death, divorce, disaster. I think 2 out of the 3 are in this one.
Oh, man. Yeah, I am. I'm also taking on a listing for a restaurant bar. I specialize in restaurants
Okay.
here in the Raleigh-Durham area. And so I will be selling the real estate and the business as well. So I had a meeting with that gentleman last week, and I'll be going over his financials. Hopefully by the end of this week, he'll have them all to me, and we can, I'm going to be working with Patty Dowdy on that because she does restaurants in the Raleigh area as well.
And I'm kind of curious if when you come across a situation like this where you don't know how to value the business because you're not getting the financials. Tonya, have you ever had a situation like that?
Yeah, early on in my career, I had a lot of those. And actually, early on in my career, we were taught to just take a worksheet, ask them questions, fill out the worksheet, figure out value based on tangible assets, plus whatever they told us verbally they were taking home every month, or, and so that ended up being a really bad formula. These days, I won't take an engagement agreement without financials. I want the last 3 years of tax returns, the P&Ls and balance sheets, which sometimes they don't have. So sometimes the only thing I get are tax returns, and I'm okay with that. But I won't occupy my time if they're not willing to send me the financials, because I burned too many buyers in the past that way. Because what happened was you market it, you do all the work, you get buyers that are looking for it, looking at it, interested in it, and then they make offers, or they want to make offers, they want to see the financials, seller still doesn't produce, and buyer ends up walking away, and just, yeah. So I won't even take an engagement anymore without the financials. It's just part of my process. But I understand why you did, John, and if it had a real estate component like that, I would probably take it as real estate and estimate the value of the business at, maybe 3 months of gross, 3 months gross revenue or something along those lines. Because I check the rule of thumb. I mean, I know you can go to Business Reference Guide online, and I know for liquor stores, sometimes if their financials are sketchy, general rule of thumb on liquor stores is about 5 months of revenue, 5 months gross revenue. So, you can calc those out to some extent, but you just understand that you're also limiting your buyer pool, because now you've got a $500,000 transaction you're trying to do that doesn't qualify for any kind of SBA or third-party financing.
Right.
So unless somebody has a bag of cash, your target market is very small at that point, unless the seller is willing to carry a large note.
Gotcha.
So,
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes it much harder, definitely. But
Now you
yeah,
have me
I
regretting that
probably
I
would have
took the
taken
deal.
that. No, like I said, John, I mean, with the real estate component in there, if you think the real estate is saleable, then great. And then that's a reason to take it. I have one right now that I took where it's a musical instrument store. The business itself had very little value. They had $200,000 worth of inventory, but the business was only cash flowing, maybe $35,000, $40,000. So the business itself is maybe worth 60 grand, 70 grand, but you got $200,000 of musical instrument inventory at cost that they want. So, ultimately I took both the business and the real estate because the real estate was worth 1.7 million. So, and
That's a
we
good
have the real
reason.
estate in escrow. Yeah, so the real estate's in escrow now, and the business they're gonna liquidate they're gonna liquidate the musical instruments. But I was very candid with them up front, saying this is a possibility, and this is more likely than not what's going to happen on here, because your business doesn't cash flow well enough to cover any debt service sufficient to even, to pay for these musical instruments. So nobody's going to be able to get a loan. If you don't want to carry paper and all of that, then you need to, have a fire sale and just sell them at whatever over cost that you can get, because you're going to end up with more money in your pocket that way.
Yeah.
So just be very honest with sellers when you're dealing with them, when you have situations like that.